I remember the exact moment my world began to crack. Not from shouting, not from some stranger's text lighting up her phone in the middle of the night, but from something far smaller. A letter. It came on a Thursday afternoon, folded neatly among bills and grocery flyers. The kind of envelope you barely glance at before tossing in the trash. If I hadn't been home early from work that day, I probably never would have seen it. Important safety recall notice, vehicle recall notification. That's what it said in bold black print. I tore it open without thinking, leaning on the counter with a half-finished cup of coffee. Inside, there was a generic letter from Toyota, warning owners of a defective airbag inflator that may cause serious injury in the event of deployment. Nothing unusual, until I looked closer. The car listed wasn't mine. It was Emma's. A 2020 silver Camry XLE. Same year. Same color. But the VIN didn't match. At first, I thought it was a typo. But as I scanned further down, something else caught my eye, the registration address. It had her full name, Emma Lawson, but the address wasn't ours. It was another town, Fairfield. 40 miles away. My stomach gave a slow, uncertain twist. I checked again, tracing my finger over the printed letters as if maybe I'd misread it. No. There it was. Her name. Her car. But another address entirely. I remember muttering to myself, half laughing, must be some database glitch. Emma and I had lived in Oak Ridge for 5 years. The DMV wasn't perfect. Mistakes happened. Still, it nagged at me. When she came home that evening, the smell of takeout filled the kitchen, sesame chicken, her favorite. She breezed in wearing that soft gray coat I'd bought her last Christmas, cheeks flushed from the cold. She smiled when she saw me. "Hey, you're home early." "Yeah," I said, forcing a casual tone. "Slow day at the office." We kissed. Quick, routine. She smelled like jasmine and peppermint gum. Over dinner, I almost didn't bring it up. But curiosity and unease have a way of gnawing until they draw blood. "Hey," I said lightly, "got a weird letter today. Car recall thing. Says it's for your Camry." She looked up mid-bite. "Mine? What's wrong with it?" "Nothing serious. Airbag issue." I reached for the paper on the counter. "Just odd, it's got your name, but, the address is different." For the briefest second, a heartbeat, maybe, her expression faltered. Then she laughed, that airy, unbothered laugh she used whenever she wanted to smooth over tension. "Oh, that. Yeah, I had my mail forwarded through my company when I first leased the car. Maybe the paperwork still shows their office address or something." I nodded. "Fairfield? That's where they are based." She hesitated, then smiled again. "MMHMM. I think so. They've got some satellite office there." It sounded plausible. Almost too plausible. I let it go. At least, I told myself I did. But later that night, as I lay in bed listening to the hum of the ceiling fan, I kept replaying her reaction. The tiny delay, the flicker in her eyes before the smile came back. I'd known Emma for 12 years. Married to her for 8. I knew her tells. And that had been one. Still, I buried the thought. We were good, or so I believed. We'd had rough patches, sure, long hours, stress, the quiet drift that happens in marriages when life gets in the way. But we always found our way back. Didn't we? A few days passed. I tried not to think about it. But once a seed of doubt takes root, it doesn't stop growing. Saturday morning, while she showered, I went into the garage. Her car sat gleaming under the single bulb, spotless as ever. Emma treated that Camry like a second home, her therapy space, she called it, her time between meetings. I jotted down the VIN from her dashboard, pretending I just wanted to compare it to the recall. Then I went back inside, matched it to the letter. It wasn't even close. Not one digit lined up. I stared at both numbers, my heartbeat pulsing in my throat. 2 completely different cars, both under her name. Maybe she'd made a mistake. Maybe there was some old record from a lease she'd co-signed. I wanted to believe that. God, I needed to believe that. But when I checked her old car history online, I found nothing. No mention of a second Camry. No lease agreements. No trade-ins. That night, when she fell asleep, I sat in the dark beside her, my laptop casting a faint blue glow on the sheets. I typed the Fairfield address from the letter into Google Maps. A neat little street appeared, lined with manicured lawns and tidy mailboxes. And there it was, 142 Willow Creek Drive. A white, single-story house with blue shutters and a grey Toyota parked in the driveway. I leaned in. Same model. Same color. Same small scratch on the rear bumper. My heart started pounding. I zoomed closer until the pixels blurred. There was no mistaking it. That was her car. I shut the laptop. Hard. Sat there in silence, staring at her sleeping face. The moonlight traced the soft curve of her cheek, the slight part of her lips as she breathed. She looked peaceful. Innocent. I wanted so badly to wake her up and demand an explanation. But I didn't. Because part of me already knew, whatever truth waited on the other side of that question would change everything. So I did nothing. For the next week, I smiled, kissed her good morning, asked about her day. Pretended everything was fine. But underneath, something in me had shifted. Every touch felt staged. Every laugh sounded practiced. Every I love you came with an echo of doubt. Then, one evening, as she packed her laptop bag, she said, "I've got to head to Fairfield tomorrow. Client presentation." Fairfield. The word hit like ice water down my spine. She said it so casually, almost daring me to notice. I forced a nod. Big meeting. Yeah. Probably won't be back till late. Don't wait up. I watched her turn away, the smooth efficiency of her movements, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. Everything looked normal. And maybe that's what hurt the most, how normal betrayal can look before it bleeds into the open. When she left the next morning, I followed her car for the first time in my life. Not far, just far enough to see which road she took. And when she turned onto Highway 6, toward Fairfield, toward that other address, my heart finally admitted what my mind had been refusing all along. Emma wasn't just driving to a meeting. She was driving into her other life. The next morning, the sky was pale and heavy, the kind that never decides whether to rain or stay grey. Emma's taillights disappeared at the corner, swallowed by the quiet of our cul-de-sac. I stood in the driveway far longer than I should have, her exhaust curling like ghost smoke. It felt wrong, watching her leave while pretending everything was normal. I'd never tailed anyone before. The very idea made me feel small, ridiculous, like a stranger in my own marriage. But curiosity, once it breaks the surface, doesn't go back to sleep. Inside, the house was too neat. Her coffee mug still on the counter, lipstick mark on the rim. The scent of her shampoo lingered in the hallway, citrus and rosemary. It used to comfort me. That morning, it felt like evidence. I told myself I'd just check a few things, calm the storm in my head, and get back to work. I opened her laptop on the kitchen table. She rarely locked it, said it was a trust thing. Apparently, I was the only one honoring that rule. Her email was clean. Too clean. Promotions, newsletters, work threads, all tidy, nothing personal. I scrolled, hoping for something ordinary. Instead, I found emptiness. Every few weeks, the messages stopped completely for a day or two, as if she vanished off the grid. I glanced at the calendar widget. Those gaps matched the same days she'd claimed late client meetings in Fairfield. A chill crept up my neck. I closed the laptop, ashamed. This wasn't who I was, not the man who snoops through his wife's inbox. But what if she wasn't who I thought she was either? I went to work, tried to bury myself in spreadsheets and phone calls, but my mind kept drifting. Every ping of my phone made my heart jump. Every silence felt like proof. By lunch, I couldn't stand it. I called her office, a marketing firm downtown. A woman answered cheerfully. "Good afternoon, Valence Creative, this is Marissa." "Hi, is Emma in?" "This is her husband." "Him, pause. She's working remotely today. Fairfield branch, I think." I swallowed. Right. Thanks. So she wasn't lying, at least, not to them. That should have comforted me. It didn't. That night, when Emma came home, she looked exhausted. Her hair messy, jacket damp from the drizzle. She smiled faintly when she saw me. "Hey, you're up. Sorry I'm late. Fairfield traffic's a nightmare." I forced a smile back. "All good. How'd the presentation go?" "Fine," she said, setting her bag down. "Just long." I watched her kick off her heels, stretch, pour herself a glass of wine. She looked normal, too normal. But when she took a sip, her hand trembled slightly. "Everything okay?" I asked. She hesitated. "Yeah. Just tired." We talked about nothing for a while. Dinner plans, bills, the neighbor's barking dog. She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. Later, as she showered, I wandered into the living room. Her phone sat charging on the coffee table. I stared at it for a long time, the screen glowing softly like temptation itself. When it buzzed once, a text preview flashing "Can't sleep either," my breath caught. No name. Just a number. I shouldn't have, but I picked it up. The message disappeared as the screen locked. I stared at my reflection in the black glass, a man I didn't recognize anymore. She came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, humming. I put the phone down so fast it almost slipped from my hands. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just checking tomorrow's forecast." She smiled, oblivious. Or maybe she wasn't. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about that text. Can't sleep either. It was simple, harmless, until it wasn't. Until you imagine the hundreds of words that might have come before it. By dawn, I'd made a decision. If I was going to lose my mind, I wanted proof first. I followed her again 3 days later. Same excuse, client pitch in Fairfield. Same smile when she left, same kiss that meant less each time. I waited 10 minutes, then drove out, keeping a few cars behind her. The highway was slick from morning rain, her silver Camry a ghost in the mist. She exited at Willow Creek. My pulse pounded as she slowed near that familiar white house, the one from Google Street View. The garage door opened, and she pulled in. She didn't come back out. I sat half a block away, watching, every second stretching like a lifetime. Then a man stepped onto the porch. Mid-30s, tall, in a navy shirt and slacks. He waved toward the garage casually, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. A few minutes later, the garage door closed. Something inside me fractured, not a sharp break, but a quiet, unbearable crack. The kind you don't hear until everything around you falls apart. I drove away before I could think. Parked behind a gas station and sat there, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. She had a life I didn't know about. A house I'd never seen. A man I couldn't name. When I finally got home, the house felt unfamiliar, every photo on the wall like a lie I'd agreed to keep believing. In one, she stood beside me on our wedding day, her hand on my chest, eyes bright with love. Was it real? Or was I just the safest choice until something better came along? My phone buzzed, a text from her. "Emma, leaving Fairfield now. Long day. Can't wait to be home, red heart hash." I stared at it until the screen dimmed. I didn't reply. That evening, she walked through the door smiling, the smell of rain and perfume following her. "Hey," she said softly. "You okay? You look pale." "Headache," I murmured. "Long day." She nodded sympathetically, kissed my temple. Poor thing. I almost laughed, the sound of it bitter, foreign. We sat together on the couch watching some mindless sitcom. She leaned against me, head on my shoulder, and for a fleeting second, I almost believed the lie again, that this was still our life, still real. But her phone buzzed. She ignored it. And I saw, just barely, the name flash across the top of the screen, D. Harper. She caught me glancing. Her eyes flicked to the phone, then to me. "Work stuff," she said quickly. "Right," I replied, voice flat. Silence grew between us, heavy, suffocating. She turned back to the TV, but her smile was gone. Inside, something cold and determined took root. I wasn't going to confront her yet, not until I understood everything. If she was living a double life, I'd peel back each layer until the truth stood naked in front of me. The letter had been the first crack. The man in Fairfield was the second. And somewhere in between, the woman I loved was slipping away, one careful lie at a time. For the next few days, I moved through life like someone wearing a mask 2 sizes too tight. I went to work, answered calls, nodded through meetings, but beneath it all, a question beat in my skull like a second pulse. Who is D. Harper? I didn't ask Emma. Not yet. You only get one moment to confront a lie, and I wanted to have everything, names, dates, proof, before I tore our world apart. The first thing I did was open my laptop and type D. Harper Fairfield into the search bar. Hundreds of results. LinkedIn, company directories, social media. Too many Harpers. But one profile stopped me. Daniel Harper, Valence creative marketing consultant. Her company. His picture showed a confident man in his late 30s, sharp suit, practiced smile. Under experience, strategic accounts manager, Fairfield branch. I stared at the photo until my stomach turned. So he worked with her. That explained the Fairfield trips. But not the text messages at night. Scrolling down, I found something worse, a recent company event photo on social media. A team dinner, wine glasses raised, laughter caught mid-motion. And there she was, right beside him. His hand brushed the back of her chair, their shoulders almost touching. The caption read, "Our Fairfield Dream Team." Dream Team. Yeah. I couldn't concentrate at work. Every client call blurred into static. By lunch, I was in my car, driving aimlessly, heart hammering as thoughts collided. Maybe it's harmless. Maybe he's just friendly. But why lie about the address? Why a whole house? That night, while Emma was showering, I checked the glove box in her Camry. Inside, registration papers, service receipts, and, buried under an old map, a spare key fob. The tag said WCD 142. Willow Creek Drive. She kept a key to the other house. I sank into the driver's seat, the air suddenly thin. If I turned that key, what would I find? Evidence? Or just the ghost of the woman I thought I knew? The next morning, I called in sick. Then I drove. The rain had washed the sky clear. Everything looked too bright, too clean for what I was about to do. When I reached Fairfield, my hands were slick with sweat despite the cold. I parked 2 houses down from 142 Willow Creek Drive and waited. The neighborhood was quiet, manicured lawns, sprinklers ticking rhythmically, children's bikes tipped over in driveways. A slice of perfect suburbia. The kind of place where nothing bad should happen. At 8:43 a.m., a silver Camry rolled into the driveway. Emma stepped out, phone to her ear, laughing at something. Then Daniel Harper came out to meet her. He leaned in, kissed her cheek. She didn't flinch. She smiled. The world tilted. I ducked lower behind the steering wheel, heart hammering. I couldn't hear their words, but I didn't need to. Her body language said everything, familiar, easy, affectionate. Not coworkers. Not friends. Lovers. She followed him inside. For a long time I sat there, watching the curtains move in the breeze, watching minutes die. Part of me wanted to storm the door, scream, destroy everything. Another part wanted to drive away and pretend I'd never seen any of it. Instead, I stayed until noon. When she finally came back out, she looked radiant, hair loose, eyes bright, like someone who'd just stepped out of another life. Then she drove off toward the highway, humming, oblivious. I waited until she was gone before I walked to the front door. The spare key slid in perfectly. My reflection stared back at me from the polished glass entry. Inside, the air smelled faintly of her perfume and cedar wood. The house was small but tidy. 2 rooms, minimalist furniture, framed photos on the mantel. I scanned the faces. None of me. All of him. One photo stopped me cold. Emma and Daniel at a company gala, her hand on his chest, that same smile she'd once saved only for me. In the kitchen, 2 coffee mugs sat in the sink, lipstick on one rim. Her shade. Crimson. On the counter, a stack of unopened mail confirmed the address in her name, Emma Lawson and Daniel Harper. No hiding now. A lease. Jointly signed. My hands shook so badly the paper fluttered. A second home. A second life. I sank onto the couch, staring at nothing. The air buzzed with the faint hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of a wall clock, the distant sound of kids playing outside. Normal sounds. Cruel sounds. Every memory I had of her replayed, rewritten by this discovery. The late nights, the mysterious texts, the laughter she'd said came from office jokes. All of it collapsing into one undeniable truth. She wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she never had been. I left the house exactly as I'd found it, careful not to disturb anything. Driving back felt like moving through fog. The road signs blurred, the radio static matched the noise in my head. When I got home, the silence pressed on my chest. Her clothes hung in our closet. Her favorite book lay open on the nightstand. It all looked like evidence of a person who still lived here, but she didn't. Not really. My phone buzzed. A text from her. Leaving Fairfield. Want me to grab dinner? I stared at the message, thumb hovering. Then I typed back. Sure. Whatever you want. The lie tasted like metal. That evening, she walked in carrying Thai takeout, smiling as if nothing had changed. Pad see you for you, green curry for me, she chirped. She kissed me lightly on the cheek. The scent of his cologne clung faintly to her jacket. I forced a smile, played along. Thanks, babe. The word caught in my throat. We ate together, her talking about marketing campaigns and deadlines, me nodding, pretending to listen. Every gesture she made, tucking hair behind her ear, licking sauce from her thumb, burned itself into me, equal parts love and hatred. When she finally asked, "You okay? You seem quiet." I lied again. Just tired. She reached across the table, squeezed my hand. We'll do something fun this weekend, yeah? Yeah, I said softly. Something unforgettable. That night, while she slept beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan. The truth was out, but the choice wasn't. Confront her, and end it? Or wait, and learn why? Because as much as I hated her in that moment, a twisted part of me needed to know what had broken us. Was it me? The long hours? The years of quiet comfort that turned to distance? Or had she always been this person, and I just refused to see it? In the darkness, I whispered to no one. I still love you. I just don't know who you are. And somewhere in the night, that truth hurt worse than the betrayal itself. Morning light crawled across the floorboards like something ashamed to enter. Emma stirred beside me, her hair falling over her face, breathing soft, peaceful. For a second, I almost convinced myself to forget. To let the lie be a kindness. But then I saw the faint red mark on her collarbone, not from me, and the illusion shattered. I got up quietly, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table. The same table where we'd planned our vacations, signed mortgage papers, laughed over burnt toast. Now it looked like a courtroom. When she finally walked in, still wrapped in her robe, she smiled sleepily. Morning, babe. You up early? Couldn't sleep, I said. My voice sounded different. Calm, too calm. She poured her coffee, humming. The same tune she'd hummed yesterday, before she went to Fairfield. Before she lied again. I let her take a sip, then said softly, "How's Fairfield?" Her hand froze. The mug clinked against the counter. What? I said. I repeated, eyes on hers, "How's Fairfield?" The house on Willow Creek Drive. The one you and Daniel share. The color drained from her face so fast it was almost beautiful, in a tragic way. She blinked, mouth opening, closing. I don't know what you mean. I leaned back, folded my arms. Please, Emma. Don't. I've seen it. The house. The pictures. Your name on the lease. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut through bone. Then she whispered, barely audible, "You went there?" "Yes," I said. "And I saw you. With him." Her shoulders slumped as if I'd just released a weight she'd been carrying for years. There was no outrage, no denial, just a slow, tired exhale. And that was worse than any scream. She sat down opposite me, fingers trembling as she traced the rim of her mug. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she said quietly, "You weren't supposed to find out like that." I almost laughed. Oh? How was I supposed to find out, Emma? A postcard from your other life? Wish you were here, except you're not. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Years of swallowed doubt, of forced smiles, came flooding out like poison. How long? I demanded. She didn't look at me when she said it. 2 years. My jaw tightened. 2 years. That meant before our 10th anniversary. The lake house trip. The dinner where she cried, saying she'd never loved me more. A lie wrapped in tears. Why him? I asked. My voice cracked on the last word. Her answer came slow, measured, like she was peeling off bandages one by one. I didn't plan it. We were working late, traveling together. He listened. He noticed things about me that you stopped noticing. That I stopped noticing. I repeated. You mean like the fact that we were both exhausted trying to build a life together? Paying off debt, fixing this house, saving for a future. She looked up, eyes glistening. You were here, Michael. But you weren't with me. We'd come home and you'd sit in silence. You barely looked at me anymore. I stared at her, disbelief warring with guilt. So your solution was to find someone who would? To lie? To live two lives like I wouldn't matter enough to tell the truth. She flinched. I didn't mean for it to go that far. But it did. She nodded. I thought about ending it. 1,000 times. But every time I tried, Her voice cracked. I didn't know how to leave you. I laughed bitterly. So you didn't. You just built a whole new world instead. We sat there in the half-light, two people dissecting the corpse of what they used to be. She wept quietly, I didn't. My tears had burned out days ago, replaced by something colder. Finally, I asked, does he love you? She hesitated. Yes. And you? Her lips trembled, then stilled. I don't know. The honesty hit harder than any lie. Later, she followed me to the living room. Please, she said, don't hate me. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I never stopped loving you. I turned to her, meeting her eyes. Emma, you can't love someone and do this to them. She stepped closer, voice trembling. I didn't cheat because I stopped loving you. I cheated because I stopped recognizing us. I didn't know who I was anymore, and with him, I felt seen again. I looked at her then, really looked. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the one I'd married. She was older, tired, carrying guilt like an invisible bruise. And somehow, despite everything, I still loved her. That was the cruelest part. Do you love me? I asked softly. She didn't answer right away. Then, yes. But it's not the same kind of love anymore. It was enough. Enough to kill what was left of the dream. That night, I didn't sleep. I packed a bag, quietly, deliberately. When she woke and saw it by the door, her face fell. Where are you going? Somewhere I can breathe. She stepped forward, panic breaking through her calm. Please don't do this. We can fix it. Therapy, time, something. Emma, I said, my voice flat. You built a life without me. The least I can do is return the favor. Tears streamed down her cheeks. It wasn't all fake. What we had, it mattered. I believe it did, I said. Until it didn't. She reached for me, but I stepped back. The space between us felt like a canyon now, filled with all the words we never said. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. But you did, I replied. And the worst part is, you did it so quietly I didn't even notice I was bleeding. As I walked out, the dawn was breaking, thin gold light spilling across the street. Neighbors watered lawns, kids waited for buses, the world went on, indifferent. Behind me, the door clicked shut with a soft finality. At the stop sign, I looked once in the rearview mirror. She was standing in the window, robe wrapped tight, watching me leave. Her outline blurred through the glass, small and still. For the first time in years, I didn't feel anger. Just an ache, deep, hollow, infinite. Maybe someday, I thought, I'd understand how love could turn into something like this, something that could destroy and still somehow feel tender in the wreckage. But for now, I drove on. Toward nowhere in particular. Toward whatever version of truth was left. Grief doesn't shout, it whispers. The first morning alone, the house sounded like a stranger breathing. Every creak of the floorboards felt staged, rehearsed. Emma's mug was still on the counter, a faint ring of coffee staining the ceramic. Her perfume lingered in the hallway, trapped in the fibers of her scarf that hung by the door. I tried to throw it out. Couldn't. Instead, I folded it, put it in a drawer. Somehow that felt less like erasing her, more like preserving evidence. For the first week, I moved through the house like a ghost. Work calls blurred into static. Food tasted like paper. Nights were the worst, the hour between midnight and 2, when the mind turns into a courtroom replaying every exhibit. I wasn't angry anymore. Just hollow. And that emptiness demanded an answer. On the 5th night, I opened my laptop. I typed Daniel Grant Fairfield, Connecticut LinkedIn, nothing. Then Daniel Grant Real Estate, Daniel Grant Toyota, Daniel Grant Marketing. Finally, an image loaded. Him. Smiling, corporate headshot. Mid-30s. Expensive suit. The kind of face that photographs well because it has nothing to hide. I clicked through his posts, all motivational quotes, charity runs, business conferences. But then I saw a tagged photo from 2 months ago, a backyard barbecue, fairy lights, a crowd of colleagues. And there she was. Emma. Her hand resting lightly on his arm. No ring. The caption read, "Good friends, great team." I stared until the screen blurred. I wanted to hate him. Wanted to punch the glass, the keyboard, anything. But the truth was worse. He looked ordinary. The kind of man you could pass in a grocery store and never think twice about. That's what made betrayal so insidious. It hid in plain sight. I started driving at night. Nowhere specific. Sometimes to the lake, sometimes past our old high school, sometimes to that same stretch of road leading toward Fairfield. Each mile felt like penance, as if movement itself could bleed out the memories. One evening, I parked outside a diner off Route 17. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, poured my coffee without asking. "You look like someone who's been thinking too hard," she said. "Is it that obvious?" She smiled faintly. "It's always obvious." Her kindness hit like salt on a wound. I thanked her, tipped too much, left before she could ask more questions. Outside, the air smelled like rain and gasoline, that strange mix of renewal and rot. I lit a cigarette, though I hadn't smoked in years. Maybe I wanted the punishment. Back home, I started going through Emma's things. Not to invade, but to understand. The drawers, the old journals, the half-filled notebooks. In one, I found a page titled simply "What if I'm wrong?" It wasn't about me. It was about him. He says he loves me. But what if I'm just an escape? What if I've mistaken freedom for love? I read the lines 3 times. It should have brought relief, but instead it twisted the knife. Because even in her doubt, she'd chosen him. The next day, I went to our dealership. I don't know what I was looking for, maybe closure, maybe confirmation that the letter hadn't been some cosmic joke. The manager recognized me. "Mr. Lawson, right? How's the Camry holding up?" "It's fine," I said. "I actually had a question about a recall notice. I think there's been a mistake." He typed something into his computer. "Let's see. VIN number." I handed him the paper. He frowned. "Him. This one's registered to an Emma Lawson, Fairfield address. Says the vehicle was purchased under a business fleet account. Do you want me to check when it was last serviced?" My throat tightened. "Sure." He clicked again. "Looks like, last month. Routine maintenance. Paid by card. Daniel Grant." He looked up. "Everything okay, sir?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah. Just needed to be sure." That night, I couldn't stay in the house any longer. I packed a duffel bag, drove to a cheap motel near the highway. The kind of place where the carpet hums with cigarette smoke and loneliness. I lay on the bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling, and asked the question no one ever answers honestly. When did love stop being enough? Somewhere between the bills and the silences, I'd lost her, not because I stopped loving, but because I stopped seeing. And she, instead of reaching for me, reached for someone else. Maybe that was the tragedy of us. 2 people waiting for the other to notice they were drowning. A week later, Emma called. Her name lit up my phone like a ghost. I almost didn't answer. But guilt won. "Michael," she said, voice small. "I just wanted to know if you were okay." "I'm breathing," I said. "That counts for something." Silence hummed between us, heavy and full. "I miss you," she whispered. "Do you?" I asked. "Yes. Every day." "Then why does it sound like you're calling from his house?" A pause. Soft, sharp inhale. "You went back to him," I said quietly. "It's complicated," she murmured. "I don't know where else to go." He offered to help until things settle. "Until what settles, Emma? The wreckage you caused." Her voice broke. "Please don't do this. I never wanted it to end this way." "Neither did I said. "But it did." I hung up before she could reply. Afterward, I sat in the dark motel room, phone still in my hand. For the first time, the anger felt small compared to the exhaustion. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about freeing her. Maybe it was about freeing myself from the need to keep bleeding. I got up, looked at my reflection in the mirror above the sink. Unshaven, hollow-eyed, but alive. That had to mean something. Outside, the rain started again, thin, steady, relentless. I opened the door, let the air hit my face, cold and clean. Somewhere behind those clouds, morning was waiting. And for the first time since the letter arrived, I thought maybe, just maybe, I could survive this. A month after I left, the silence stopped being painful. It became something else, an old coat that fit too well. I went to work, came home, ate, slept. The days folded in on themselves like blank pages. Then one Friday afternoon, a letter slipped under my apartment door. No envelope. Just a single sheet of paper. Michael, please meet me at the lake. I need to tell you the truth before it destroys what little is left. Emma. For a long time I just stared at it. The lake, the place we used to call ours. The same place she'd told me she loved me for the first time. And now she wanted to meet there to bury something. I drove out at sunset, the sky bruised and heavy. The water shimmered with that strange orange glow that always reminded me of endings. She was already there, sitting on the old dock, coat wrapped tight around her. When she turned, I saw the version of her I'd never known, smaller, quieter, stripped of the armor she wore so well. "Thank you for coming," she said. I didn't answer. I just sat beside her, leaving a deliberate gap of wood between us. For a while we listened to the water slap against the posts. Then she said, "You deserve to know everything." She told me she'd met Daniel during a work project, nothing new there, but what she hadn't told me was what came after. Her father's heart attack. The medical bills. The mortgage on her parents' house that she'd secretly been paying. She hadn't wanted me to know because we were already drowning in debt. So she'd taken on side work through Daniel's company, quietly, under her maiden name. The second address, the business lease, even the car, all tied to that arrangement. It started as just work, she said. But when the money started coming in, and you asked where it came from, I lied. I said bonuses, promotions, whatever you'd believe. And then it turned into him, I said. She nodded, eyes glassy. I was already lying. Once you cross that line, the next one is easier. Her honesty hurt worse than denial. It meant every moment of affection she'd given me during those years had existed alongside a quiet, running betrayal. Two realities living in one body. I asked, "Why didn't you just tell me about the debt? We could have figured it out." "You were already breaking," she said softly. "Working 12 hours, barely sleeping. I couldn't ask you for more. And Daniel, he offered a way out. A way out that cost both of us everything." She looked at me then, really looked. "I know. And I'm so sorry. But I need you to understand it wasn't about choosing him over you. It was about trying to save everyone and losing myself. I wanted to stay angry. I wanted the clean lines of villain and victim. But sitting there, hearing the tremor in her voice, I couldn't keep the story that simple anymore. We watched a heron glide over the lake, wings cutting through reflection. She said quietly, "He doesn't know I'm here." "Are you still with him?" She shook her head. "No. He was a mirror I didn't want to face anymore. When you left, I realized I'd built my whole life around running from consequences." I almost laughed. "Congratulations, Emma. You finally caught up." She flinched. "I deserve that." Silence again, thick, gray, alive with everything unsaid. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you." Inside was a check, bank transfer confirmation, and a note in her handwriting. All the money I earned from Daniel's company. Every cent. "I'm selling the Fairfield house too. It was never supposed to be mine." I stared at it. "I don't want your guilt money." "It's not guilt," she said. "It's accountability." The wind picked up, whipping her hair across her face. She tucked it behind her ear the same way she used to on long drives, when she'd sing along to old songs and smile at me like I was her whole world. "I used to think love was about endurance," she said. "About staying no matter what. But maybe love is about telling the truth before it's too late." I said, "You're about 3 years late." She gave a broken laugh. "I know." We sat there until the sun sank. Somewhere across the water, a loon called, haunting, distant. It sounded like something searching for what it lost. When she finally stood, she whispered, "I don't expect forgiveness. But I needed you to hear me." I looked up at her. The anger was still there, but smaller now, softened by exhaustion. "I heard you," I said. "That's all I can promise." She nodded. "Then that's enough." As she walked back toward her car, I realized this was the first goodbye that actually felt real. No slamming doors. No shouting. Just two people standing in the ruins, finally seeing them for what they were. When her taillights disappeared down the road, I sat there until the stars came out. The lake was black glass, the dock cold under my hands. I thought about the years we'd shared, holidays, inside jokes, the easy rhythm of familiarity, and how fragile it had all been. Betrayal isn't always about lust or lies. Sometimes it's about silence. The slow erosion of truth between two people who once promised to share everything. For the first time, I didn't feel hatred toward her. Just an ache that maybe this was the only way the truth could have ever surfaced, through destruction. I stood, tossed a stone into the water, and whispered to no one, "Goodbye, Em." The ripples spread outward, fading into the dark, until the surface was calm again. Almost peaceful. Morning crept in pale and quiet, the kind of light that feels like it's apologizing for showing up. I hadn't slept. The couch was littered with half-finished apologies I'd never send, and the house smelled faintly of the coffee Emma used to make, too sweet, too careful. Every sound, the refrigerator hum, the tick of the wall clock, felt like it was accusing me of still being here. I told myself I was done looking for answers. But silence makes promises it can't keep. A knock came mid-morning, soft, familiar. "Mike? You in there?" It was Aaron, my best friend since college. He'd been the first to call after the fallout, the only one who didn't ask for details. We'd built half our lives side by side, our houses 2 streets apart, our kids calling each other cousins in the summers. I opened the door, exhausted, trying to remember how to fake normal. "Man, you look wrecked," he said, stepping inside. "You eating anything?" "Trying not to," I muttered. He handed me a paper bag, bagels from the shop we used to hit after late-night shifts. It was such an Aaron thing to do that I almost smiled. Almost. We sat in the living room, him talking about work, about how the guys at the garage missed seeing me. I nodded at all the right spots, grateful for the noise filling the room. But when I went to pour coffee, his phone buzzed on the table. A message flashed before the screen went dark. Just a name. Broken Heart. For a second, my brain refused to read it. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for me to blink and see something else, anyone else. But the contact photo, cropped, familiar, her eyes half hidden by sunlight, stared back. My hand froze on the coffee pot. I heard my own voice, distant. You still talking to Emma?" Aaron looked up too quickly. "What? No. Why would I?" He stopped, saw the phone. I saw the color drain from his face. And that was it. The lie collapsing in real time. He stood, stammering. "Mike, listen." I didn't hear the rest. The mug shattered before I even realized I'd dropped it. I kept staring at the floor, at the dark coffee bleeding into the cracks of the tile, because it was easier than looking at him. "How long?" My voice didn't sound like mine. He tried to speak, then stopped, jaw tight. Finally, the words came out, small and wrecked. "About a year. Before you found out." A year. That meant birthdays, holidays, that road trip to Michigan, the one where Aaron had insisted we take his SUV because it had better mileage. I remembered him loading our suitcases, smiling at Emma over the roof of the car, a look I'd mistaken for old friend familiarity. It had been something else entirely. I walked out onto the porch because I couldn't breathe inside. The air was cold, sharp enough to sting, and for a wild second I thought maybe pain was air's only honest language. Aaron followed, staying a few feet behind. "She said she was ending it. She said she loved you. That she didn't want to ruin everything." "Then why?" I turned. My voice cracked in the middle of the word. "Why keep coming around? Why act like my brother?" He flinched like the word itself hit him. "Because I didn't know how to stop caring about both of you." That line. It should have sounded noble, tragic even. But all I felt was hollow laughter rising in my chest. I wanted to hit him. God, I wanted to. But standing there, I realized the violence wasn't worth it. He looked as destroyed as I felt. And somehow that was worse. He left after that. No big scene, no door slam. Just the sound of footsteps fading into the street, leaving me with the echo of everything we'd built. 2 friendships, 1 marriage, all reduced to debris you can't even sweep away. I spent the rest of the day driving without direction. The streets blurred into one long reflection of things I couldn't fix. I ended up at the lake again, the same place Emma had told me the truth, the same water that had mirrored my anger. This time, it was just stillness. I sat there until the sun dipped low enough to set the sky on fire. And then I remembered something, the recall notice. The stupid, ordinary letter that had started everything. I'd thrown it in the glove compartment after confronting her. I pulled it out now, absently reading the fine print. Vehicle registered to A. Coleman. Aaron's last name. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound that startled a flock of birds from the reeds. The universe wasn't content with small cruelties, it had threaded every clue right under my nose. She'd bought the car with him. It wasn't a secret she'd stumbled into, it was a life she'd been building parallel to mine. That was the twist of the knife, not just the cheating, but the construction of a second world I was never invited into. When I got home, I found an envelope on the doorstep. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Emma's. Inside, a single note. I never meant to destroy you. I just couldn't keep pretending to be the person you needed me to be. Take care of yourself, Michael. You loved me better than I loved myself. There was no apology. Just the truth, quiet, devastating, and final. I sat on the floor with that note for a long time, the house breathing around me. I realized then that betrayal isn't a single moment. It's a haunting. It lingers in the things you once shared, the songs, the scents, the way light hits the kitchen tiles. You live with it until it fades into something like understanding. When the clock struck midnight, I burned the note in the sink. Watched the flames curl her words into ash. For the first time in months, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I wasn't ready to forgive. I wasn't ready to forget. But I was done being defined by someone else's lies. And that, after everything, was its own kind of freedom. It's been 6 months since Emma left. Sometimes I still wake up reaching for her side of the bed, muscle memory pretending the world didn't change. Then I see the faint dent on her pillow, and the ache rushes back, sharp as ever. But it fades faster now. Grief is a stubborn tenant, but even it learns when the rent's too high. The house is quieter, but not empty. I've filled it with small, ordinary sounds, the hiss of the kettle, the scratch of pen on paper. I've started writing again. Not about her, not really. More about me, about the pieces that survived. My therapist says that's progress. Aaron moved out of town. He sent one message before disappearing, an apology that read more like a confession. I didn't respond. What could I say? That I forgave him? I don't. That I hate him? I don't, either. Hatred requires energy I no longer have to spare. Indifference, it turns out, is heavier but easier to carry. I sold the lake house. Couldn't stand the echo of those last words between us. But I kept one thing, the recall notice. I had it framed, not out of spite, but as a reminder. It hangs in my office, between 2 family photos. A relic of the day my life broke open and started breathing again. It's strange, the things we choose to remember. One afternoon in early spring, I stopped at the grocery store after work. The cashier was new, young, distracted, her smile the kind you give when life's heavier than you let on. I was halfway to the door when someone called my name. Michael. I turned. It was Emma's sister, Rachel. I hadn't seen her since the divorce. Her hair was shorter, streaked with grey that hadn't been there before. She smiled cautiously, as if I might shatter. Didn't think I'd run into you here, she said. Yeah. I shop on Thursdays now. It was a stupid thing to say, but it made her laugh. She studied me for a moment, eyes softer than I remembered. You look better. Lighter. I'm trying, I said. We stood there in the automatic doorway's draft, suspended between leaving and staying. Then she said quietly, Emma moved to Portland. She's been trying to get help. I nodded. unsure what emotion to grab onto. She wanted to write you, Rachel added, but she thought it would only make things worse. I didn't answer right away. Because she was right, it would've. But hearing it out loud, months later, didn't make me angry. It just felt like another chapter closing softly. Tell her, I hesitated. Tell her I'm okay. And that I hope she finds what she's looking for. Rachel smiled. I think she will. Then she walked away, her cart squeaking through the parking lot. For a long moment, I just stood there, the automatic doors breathing open and shut behind me. The air smelled like rain and oranges. And for the first time in a long while, I realized I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about what I still had: breath, space, silence, the slow pulse of something like peace. That night, I drove to the lake again. Not the old cabin, just the overlook nearby. The water shimmered under a thin crescent moon, calm and indifferent. I rolled down the window, let the air pour in. I thought about trust. How fragile it is. How we build our lives around people, never realizing how much of that construction depends on faith, the quiet belief that love is truth. When that belief cracks, you don't just lose the person. You lose the version of yourself that trusted so completely. But maybe that's the point of heartbreak. It strips you back to something honest. Not who you were with them, but who you can be after. I took out my phone and deleted her contact. Not out of anger this time. Out of acceptance. The kind that comes not from forgetting, but from no longer needing to remember. The radio played something soft, a song we used to love. I didn't change it. I just listened, the notes carrying out across the water. Every ending, I realized, has an echo. You can't silence it. You just learn to live with the sound. As the song faded, I whispered something I hadn't said in months. Goodbye, Emma. The wind took it, scattering it across the lake. And for the first time, I let it go.